The chair recognizes the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. King, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Rosenstein, for your testimony here and your service. A number of things I'm curious about here. First of all, in the interview of Hillary Clinton that took place reportedly July 2nd of 2016, how many people were in the room for that? How many people had the opportunity to question her?
Congressman, I do not know the answer to that. I believe when the Inspector General completes his review, we may have additional information, but I personally do not know.
And would you know who selected that team?
No, I do not.
Really? Okay. I recall a testimony here by James Comey and also by then Attorney General Loretta Lynch that testified, one of the two of them, that there were 3 representatives of the FBI and 3 representatives of DOJ in that room doing that interview. Would that be consistent with practice that you would anticipate? Am I going to hear IG again?
Typically, we would have at least 2 agents conduct an interview, and there may be any number of attorneys based upon who's on the case. I just don't know the details of that particular decision.
Okay. And the practice in an interview like that, would there be records kept of that interview?
Yes. If there were FBI agents present, typically they would take notes and produce a report summarizing the interview.
Would there be a videotape or a transcript?
Generally, no.
And why not?
Well, it's just not, it's not the practice to do it.
It needs to become the practice. The practice out across the countryside, many of our local law enforcement is that if you're a county deputy and you're interviewing somebody for drunk driving, you tape that interview. And we have sheriffs out there that will say, if they don't do that, that's cause for discipline. Now we're sitting here with a mystery on what went on in that interview of July 2nd, and there's many questions have been asked about that before and after, and they will trickle through history until we get to the bottom of it. We don't know yet who was in the room. At least you can't tell me who was in the room. Do you have any knowledge that Peter Strzok might have been one of those people?
I do not know.
It's been reported in the news that he was one of those people. Are you aware of that?
I've read a lot of news reports. I may have seen that in the news, but I personally do not know.
I see. And when I look through it, just a timeline here, quickly to drop this into the record, April, May of 2016, Peter Strzok interviews Huma Abedin and Cheryl Mills, who happened to be in the room with Hillary Clinton and her general counsel and her chief of staff and is subject to the investigation. Then on May 2nd, Comey emails FBI officials a draft statement a couple of months before his recommendation not to prosecute Hillary Clinton, and in that chain, Peter Strzok's name shows up. It's been reported that he's the one that swapped out the references from gross negligence to extremely carelessness. I don't know if that's true. Do you have any knowledge about that?
No, but I would point out, Congressman, that it's the Inspector General review that has turned up.
I thought that was going to be the answer. And then also skipping forward to July 24th, FBI interviews Michael Flynn on Russia. It's reported in the news that Peter Strzok is in that interview. No knowledge to disagree with the reports that are in the news, however.
Correct.
And then we get the news later on that sometime in midsummer, Peter Strzok had been removed from Mueller's investigative team, but we find out December 4th that took place publicly. I kind of understand that. If that had drifted into the jet stream, perhaps we wouldn't be into the middle of this controversy. But what about if his hands are in so many things, and I've not touched them all by any means, but if he has his hands in this many things, what about the fruit of the poisonous tree? This is the reverse of this. This is the voids of the fruit of the poisonous tree. And I'm looking at what was reported this morning. I just took a picture of the television set on my iPhone just so that we all know what I'm talking about here. A quote from August 6, 2016 text, Lisa Page to Peter Strzok, and they're talking about President Trump. And maybe you're meant, she's speaking to Peter Strzok, her lover, I hear, and maybe you're meant to stay where you are because you are meant to protect the country from that menace. And Peter Strzok's response is, thanks. It's absolutely true that we're both very fortunate. And of course, I'll try and approach it that way. I just don't know. It will be tough. It will be tough at times. I can protect our country at many levels. Not sure if that helps. Does that sound like a declaration that he would use his job to leverage his work against the President of the United States?
Congressman, the Inspector General's investigation includes interviews of numerous witnesses, and I anticipate, hopefully in the near future, we'll have a report with the Inspector General's conclusions.
Would you have any opinion on the lack of the fruit from the poisonous tree that might have been erased by Peter Strzok?
Well, as a legal matter, Congressman, I can tell you that if evidence is tainted, then that would raise a concern for me. But typically, our cases would be prosecuted based upon witnesses and documents, and not upon the agent, unless the agent personally were a witness in the case. But that would certainly concern us if there were any tainted evidence in the case.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenstein. I appreciate it, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman.